Hey guys, welcome to That Florida Feeling. How is everybody this week? I hope everybody has had a great week. It's hot. It's summer, I guess. I'm calling it summer. As soon as it hits 90, it's summer. I guess it's summer year-round in Florida. But that makes sense. Because we get 90s in January. Like, all of Florida. Just January. Thanks to everybody who has participated in the polls and questions this week. I've been asking you leading up to this episode because it is my 3rd anniversary of That Florida Feeling. And I can't believe it. I can't believe you guys have listened to me for 3 years. I can't believe I've had this much to say in 3 years. I really can't. I didn't think anybody would listen to begin with, and then the fact that you guys are still listening amazes me. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who has joined the groups and the Facebook page and followed along and commented and liked and shared and helped and given me episode ideas and been guests and led me to other guests and suggestions and supported. And I just appreciate everything. I really didn't think that the podcast would go anywhere, but to be doing this 3 years later is overwhelming. It really is. Because I started it out as just a project because I was unemployed. So I was like, all right, I got nothing to do. And I just kind of started it as a joke. And here we are 3 years later. And I am still talking about Florida. I honestly didn't know that Florida would have that many topics. I thought I'd run out of topics by now, and I still have so many. So I didn't really know what to do for my 3rd anniversary. I was like, I gotta have a really cool topic. I'm gonna have a really cool guest. And then I realized that the best thing to do for my 3rd anniversary is just to talk about the last 3 years. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm just going to talk to you guys about that Florida feeling. So, the first thing I want to talk about is my most played episode. And my most played episode is moving to Florida. And I want to tell you the story behind it. So, moving to Florida is an episode with Matthew. And it was just us telling you guys everything about moving to Florida, because everybody wants to move to Florida. There are 1,000 people a day that move to Florida. And by the way, that's not a made-up statistic. That is a legit statistic. There are literally 1,000 people a day that are moving to Florida. And it's been that way for years at this point. That was right around the time that COVID happened. People were doing that, and it's continued to this day. I don't know where y'all are going. I don't know where you're living. I don't even know how some of you are affording it. But you're doing it. But we just started talking about moving to Florida, and I just started recording it. And now it's one of my most played episodes. It's got well over 500 plays, and it's been up for at least a year and a half at this point. And, all we did was we just told you guys what we dealt with, what we encountered, some of the changes we went through, how much it cost. Because I'm not going to lie to you, when we went to change our tags from Tennessee to Florida, we got hit with a shock. Because 10 years ago, it was like $800 to change 2 license plates and driver's license to Florida. It was like $800. And I was not prepared for that. I'm glad we had the money to do it, but I was not prepared for that. That was a lot of money to us. And, that's a lot of money to anybody. Not to some people, but to most people, especially if you're just working. And, we just started talking about that. We started talking about everything we had to do to move to Florida. And then when we got here, the differences and what to expect and, just even moving within Florida. Because as I've told you guys in plenty of my episodes, not all of Florida is equal. The Panhandle is in no way like the rest of Florida. I'm not even sure why we call it Florida. I'm really not. I don't know. I mean, it's a nice aesthetic. It looks pretty on the map, but it's really just, it's not like the rest of Florida. It's a joke why it's called Lower Alabama. So that is my most played episode because, and it's the truth. It's literally two people just talking about moving to Florida. And most of the information still stands to this day to be true. It is expensive to move to Florida. It is expensive to change your license plates and licenses over. And it is kind of a culture shock, especially if you move from, say, like middle of the country, like Midwest to South Florida. You're in for it. You are just in for it. Good luck. And depending on the part of Florida you go to, people aren't the nicest. We've encountered that, depending on what part you live in. Some people are more like the South and some people are more like the North. And, sometimes you just encounter a bunch of assholes. Like, I'm not even going to lie to you about it. So that is my most played episode, which was shocking because it was just a one-off, just let's talk about it. I don't have an idea for tonight. And I think we actually had just moved ourselves. And so we just started talking. We were drinking beers and just started talking about, hey, let's just talk about what happened when we moved to Florida. And lo and behold, that became one of my most played episodes to date. And that was actually probably one of the most fun because there was no script. There was no timeline. We talked from, close to an hour, which is about the time limit on my episodes. So that was probably one of the most fun and the most played in the past 3 years. My most requested topic that I've ever had, believe it or not, was metal detecting. I asked for suggestions one time for what you guys would want to hear about Florida, and I got a bunch, and I didn't realize this many people were into metal detecting in the state of Florida. And I didn't realize that there was that many people out there already doing metal detecting. And I mean, you see them on the beach every now and then, but I had no idea that it was that much of a hobby or a topic, but it's actually really big in Florida. So I did a episode. It's called Beep Beep, because that's what you hear when you put a metal detector on. You hear you listening for the beeps. So fun play on words. But I did a entire topic on metal detecting in Florida. That was my most requested topic, and probably one of my most interesting to date to be able to research. I found a lot of great research. In fact, visitflorida.com has an entire page devoted to metal detecting in Florida. In fact, it even tells you about the different counties, because each county pretty much has its own thing. Don't dig up the beaches. They don't want you to dig up their parks. But metal detecting was one of my most requested topics, and it's really interesting. There's a lot of places you can rent metal detectors and get into this hobby, because it is an expensive hobby. It really is, guys. And there's a lot of groups out there that meet, and a lot of people that are out there to help you with it, because there's even an entire etiquette to metal detecting. I had no idea, just no clue about it. Obviously don't go in people's backyards. You don't want to get shot being on someone's property. Don't dig up the beaches. Anything over 50 years belongs to Florida, which seems unfair if you find like Spanish doubloon. I feel finders keepers should apply to that stuff. But, I had no idea that there were so many rules and so many things that went into metal detecting. And that was probably one of my coolest episodes to date to get to research, but it was also my most requested. And it is one of my also highest played. I also had the most fun because once I got that episode out there, I also got the most feedback on that one. A lot of people were talking to me about doing it because they also didn't realize that there was that much information about metal detecting in Florida that was also out there. Because I found websites, like I said, even Visit Florida had it. I found Facebook pages. I found Instagram pages. I found a ton of stuff on Reddit, which, of course, never surprises me. Reddit seems to literally have everything. But it was just very interesting to get that as a top requested subject for a podcast episode. I didn't even think about that. I mean, like I said, you see people on the beach in early mornings and late at night. And of course, you see places where you can rent them. But I guess I just didn't think that there was that many people out there trying to get into that hobby or just something fun or different to do on the beaches in Florida. So that was probably one of my most requested subjects was metal detecting in Florida. And you can go back and listen to it. My episode is called Beep Beep, as in listen for the beeps. And that was a really, really fun one to do. Another one that's also been most requested and probably most done because there's so many of them is the Florida state parks. I probably have at least 6 to 7 episodes on the Florida state parks. I've done a bunch of those in the last 3 years. The Florida state parks are also probably the thing I have visited the most in Florida, as there are so many. In fact, I just went to one last week as in preparation for an upcoming episode. They are truly great. I think the Florida has done an amazing job on the state parks. I love talking about them. In fact, I had Jen on. You can find her on Instagram, Florida on Foot. She has her own blog about going and visiting the state parks. She likes to get out there and hike and visit them and explore them. You can find her and look her up. She was on one of my episodes talking about the different state parks. That's another one of my most requested topics, and one that I really like to talk about as well, because the Florida state parks can range from a tiny little park that is talking about one piece of history to an entire huge acreage of area that encompasses a forest, a beach, and has a historic fort on it that really kind of has something for everyone, that even allows you to camp overnight. So I like that Florida preserves its history, even its, maybe not finer moments in history, but it preserves its history and it allows you to visit them. I do like the fact that this last Memorial Day, just a couple days ago, they did allow people to go in there for free so that you can explore Florida. And it's a great way to be able to see Florida on maybe a budget as well. The state parks aren't that expensive to get into. It's like $6 usually for a car full. And, you can stay all day. A lot of them have the bathrooms. Some of them have concessions, especially the ones with the beaches usually tend to have the bathrooms and the showers. And so that's also another one of my most requested topics that is really fun to talk about. And then when I do that, I usually tend to pick some from all over different parts of the state. So that way people that are visiting different parts of the state can usually find one that's close by them. Or if they're not, they want to do something that's maybe not so beachy or so touristy, the state parks usually offer you kind of another option. Another topic that people often ask about is the history of Florida. Well, there's a lot of history in Florida. Florida is one of the oldest states, not technically a state, but the oldest in the U.S. Before it was even the U.S. We have the oldest city in St. Augustine, and we have some of the oldest ghost stories, thanks to St. Augustine. And so that's been really fun over the last 3 years to get to explore the history of Florida, which has also led me to meet some very interesting people. I've had Q on a couple times. That's been a great guest over the last 3 years, especially when he comes on and he tells the ghost stories from St. Augustine. Those are actually some of my more popular episodes, having him tell not only the history of St. Augustine, but also the ghost stories of St. Augustine. And if you have ever been to St. Augustine, you know that what he's telling you is probably true. Much of St. Augustine is as haunted as he and I and Matthew all make it out to be. And that's been really fun to be able to even tell you guys my personal experiences on the podcast without people looking at me like I'm crazy. So that's been another fun thing, is to be able to tell personal stories on the podcast and get those out there. Another thing that's actually been requested a lot on the podcast is hidden gems and roadside attractions. So it's been fun to be able to tell you guys about places even that I've stopped in Florida along my travels. Robert's Fruit Stand is another great place, especially down towards the Keys. That is another great one. I know that me and Tracy love talking about Robert's and their fresh fruit, although I'm still not going to try jackfruit. I can't do it. That's another great place that I like to tell people out. You have to go to Robert's. That's definitely one place you need to check out. And getting you guys turned on to new places to stay, like the Amelia Schoolhouse Inn up in Amelia Island and Fernandina Beach. That's a beautiful place and a great property. They have such a cute little bar on the bottom floor called the Principal's Office Bar. It's kind of a hidden gem. It's just another little place that you would go and you'd probably pass by and think nothing of it. But it's an old schoolhouse that's turned into a hotel that's absolutely amazing. It's not overpriced, and it's close to everything. Another place that I like to tell people about in the roadside attractions is that there's a random giant lobster in the Keys. Betsy. You have to go see Betsy as you're traveling through the Keys. That's a great roadside attraction. Or I can never remember the name of this one. Otis Castle in St. Augustine. There's a random castle outside of Volano Beach. As you're driving by, you can see it. That's right. Out of everything in St. Augustine, there is also a castle. Who knew, right? Actually, if you've ever been to St. Augustine, it probably should not surprise you that there's a random castle. It really shouldn't. Especially a hidden castle out of everything else. There is... I cannot ever remember the name of it, but I always call it the... Coral Castle. The Coral Castle near Homestead. That's another really good attraction that I tell people to go visit just because it's so weird. He built it by himself. Nobody knows how. Nobody can figure it out. And it's just a great place to go see once. Because, I mean, truly, just looking at it, you have no idea how this guy could have done it. And he did it without help. Nobody ever saw him even build it. So it's one of those, go by it once, look at it, and go, yeah, okay, huh. And Florida's full of those great little roadside attractions that don't cost a lot of money and are fun to drive by. And it kind of even takes you back to old Florida. The nostalgia. And in doing so, finding those like old motels that, have been refurbished, and finding, places that kind of take you back to like simpler times instead of staying at like the Omnis or the Hiltons or the places that, have Wi-Fi everywhere. Instead, you just sit on the beach and you relax, and who knows, you might have a bobcat walk 5 feet from you, which, yes, that's a true story. You can hear it in one of my previous episodes. And that's another fun thing, is being able to tell you those fun stories, or telling you about the animals from Florida. I've gotten to do a conservation episode on the Florida panther, which is a truly endangered animal in Florida, which is not getting any better because people keep moving to Florida and we're killing their habitats. They can only live in the Everglades for so long. It's a sad situation. And I know progress will not stop, but I hope that we can still save the Panthers. Although right now they're doing pretty good in hockey, so they might save themselves. But yeah, it's been fun to be able to talk about them and the alligators, which I honestly never, ever expected to do a topic on alligators. But, that's been the fun thing, is that somebody says something and then you just end up making an entire episode on something you never expected to talk about. And I learned so much about alligators. I never absolutely expected to do anything, especially not alligators. And did an entire episode on them. Actually, almost an hour on that one as well. But I will say my favorite episode from that Florida feeling over the last 3 years that I actually researched and did is I have a tie. My favorite is I really like doing the Publix one. I really, really liked the Publix because it was really cool to see how one man's vision, Mr. George Jenkins, went from his, palace, what he used to call his palace in Winter Haven, and now they are way outside of Florida. They are known. Their pub subs are amazing. They keep creating new ones. Their cakes are just fantastic. Their customer service should be top notch, and things like that. And that was a really cool episode to get to research to see just how far Publix has come, and while they have had some trials and failures, how they've still somehow managed to come out on top. Although a small part of me, as a person who grew up in Tennessee, does like to see the little Kroger delivery vehicles, because I still like Lux beans, and you can't find Lux at Publix. I'm just saying. Part of me likes to see that. Don't judge. And then my other absolute favorite episode would have to be the Everglades. I thought the Everglades was just basically a big swamp, and I was absolutely wrong. I did not expect it to go almost an hour. I did not realize that there was so much in the Everglades. I didn't realize that it was basically a big flowing river. I just thought it was a place that rednecks hung out and made meth. And that is not it at all. There is a huge, diverse ecosystem out there that so many things depend on, that Mother Nature really takes care of its own out there. And it was so cool to learn what all lives out there, how it takes care of itself between the lightning strikes and the rains and the hurricanes and the river, and how it really cleans itself after human interaction. And so that was really cool to be able to get that entire episode, which it really was a long one, but to go through that episode and to really learn and have a new appreciation of, that part of South Florida. So those are my two absolute favorite episodes I have done in the last 3 years, which is funny because both of those are from my first year of doing that Florida feeling. Not that I haven't loved any in the past 2 years. It's just those are probably my favorite. Probably because I had a little more time to research as my job changed. But I have had some amazing guests on. I absolutely love having Bob on. He's the author of Flicker in the Water. If you've not checked his book out, you definitely need to. He's an amazing fisherman. He was great to talk to. He made me kind of want to go fishing again. And I did get his book, and I did read it, and I will not spoil it for you, but I'm saying that you need to get the book. It's a pretty good read. Can't wait to have him on again sometime soon. Definitely going to have to give him on again. I've loved having Tiffany on. We talked about working at Disney and Universal. So that's a different behind-the-scenes look for you guys. That was fun to talk about. I had Mallory on. She talked about moving to Florida, how she had been here a year and how much she had changed. It had changed for her moving from Louisiana and how much she had changed. Jamie and Ree had come on, talked about how they had been in Florida and how much it had changed for them coming from up north. So they gave you a different perspective. And it's been great having the different guests on. Jen was just on talking about the different state parks. And it's been really good to give you guys other perspectives about Florida. And that's been really fun for me as well. I liked being able to talk to people. And it's kind of helped me as well to learn new things. Bob made me want to go fishing again. And so that was fun. And Jen made me want to go to a state park. And Jamie and Reed made me thankful I never lived in the north because of all the snow. And Mallory made me remember how much fun it was to move to Florida. And Tiffany and I reminisced about Disney and how I didn't miss working there. But these are all the things in the last 3 years that I'm thankful that I was able to bring you guys. And some big changes have come to the podcast. I'm now part of Unfiltered Studios, and I've gotten to meet some amazing people in the studio who can help me, with the podcast and gave me great ideas. And I hope to have a couple of them on as guests here in the future to talk about different things with Florida as well. So that's going to be fun. And I have a lot of new topics. And you guys know I'm always open to suggestions. But the most thankful thing I can say in the last 3 years is that I have gotten to meet some amazing people through this podcast. I've met some of you guys, and you guys have become some of my good friends. And I am the most thankful for that. So thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting. Because, as you know, some of the weeks I had to do replays because I lost family members or, things happened, and you guys still supported me. And I just want to say thank you. I can't imagine, I just can't imagine that this would have gone on 3 years, and here we are. So, here's to until topics run out or Florida falls into the ocean. Who knows what's going to happen first, guys. But I just want to say thank you for an awesome 3 years. To many more Florida men, because we know that they're never going to go away, because they're always going to keep doing something stupid. Here's to drinking water, wearing our sunscreens, and having many more days in the sun, guys. That's your daily dose of sunshine.
This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.